Taylor Swift is a link builder. There were rumours that she would get engaged. Our client said, let's give them a free wedding venue. And then we got them 50 links. That's digital PR.
Managing multiple clients or large websites? Automate your SEO with Ali AI. Start your free trial now.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
Hello, Brighton. So today I'm going to be talking about content audits and how to speed them up with ChatGPT. So firstly, hands up, who actually uses ChatGPT? Brilliant. Who does content audits? And who uses ChatGPT to actually audit their actual content at the moment? So today I'm going to be talking up using three tools, Google Sheets, App Scripts and ChatGPT, and how we can use all these three platforms which are free, except ChatGPT, which has a premium version. However, we'll be able to do that and speed up your content audits. So by the end of the talk, you should be able to create a content audit just like this. So my name is Jonathon. I'm Senior SEO Exec at Fly High Media. I started there just under a year ago. And at the time, we were doing content audits manually and felt a bit like this. So what I thought was, there must be a way to speed this up. We were using platforms like Marketing Syrup, Screaming Frog, to paste the data into Google Sheets. And I thought, there must be a different way. So I had a little look into it and thought, how can I do this with ChatGPT? So with ChatGPT, I've started generating codes, and after a while, I got it right, and now I feel a lot more like this. So firstly, I thought I'd cover what actually are Google App Scripts. So Google App Scripts is a functionality that's actually built into Google Sheets that enables you to create custom formulas on Google Sheets. So for example, you might be used to using the IMPORTXML function on Google Sheets. Instead, you can use this to actually generate your own scripts. So yeah, that's mainly. So to access this, you can easily access it in the extensions and Google App Scripts section on Google Sheets. And then you should get a platform, something just looks just like this. So I thought firstly, what can actually be imported? So we can pull through metadata. So we can pull through meta titles, meta descriptions. Another thing, of course, if we're auditing bigger websites, we can audit stuff like meta keywords, old sites, everything, any metadata we can pull through straight into the Google Sheet through this functionality that I'll be showing you. We can check the canonical tag. Of course, we want to make sure that if it's a really important piece of content on the site, that it actually can be indexed by Google. If we don't want it pointing to another page on the site, otherwise it might not be indexed anyway. We can actually check through what current schema is actually used on the page. So for example, for blogs, we might look at using blog posting schema, or we can also change it, flip it around and have it tell us what schema is actually missing, which we can implement later and put in the actionable section of a content audit. The publish date, so we can check when the actual content was published, as long as that is either in the HTML code of the website or is in actual blog posting or any article schema already on the page. We can pull through that. And of course, we could also pull through the last modified date if that's also in HTML or schema. Of course, we want to check if the content was published, say, 2022, and it hasn't been updated since then we might put an actionable to update that to keep it relevant, to make sure it's useful for users, especially with Google focusing on useful content. We can also pull through the actual author so if you've got blog posting schema or in HTML again, we can pull through who the author is. Of course, really important to check this for EAT and check if they're actually an authority, and if they're not, we might want to change that. So that can be an actionable from it. If the article tags and category actually are in the content, we can pull that through straight into the Google Sheet. So we can check if the tags that are on the blog are relevant, if the categories are relevant. just to make sure that they are tagged correctly. Otherwise, we might have a landing page on the site that's pulling through the specific category, and the blogs are not relevant. Really not very good for user experience. We can also pull through H1s, headings, H2s, all the way down to H6s. We could either do this in a full list, or we can pull this in separately and import them into different cells in a Google Sheet. Word count, of course, really important. I'm going to cover that a bit later because there can be a few issues that you can have with word count. So the word count, we want to make sure that it's actually pulling how much content is actually on the page, and check that, for example, if it's a really important piece of content, for example, understanding the most important topic on that website, then we want that to be not 300 words or something like that. We can audit that. We can pull through the internal and external links from the website, so we can check how many internal and external links are coming through to that page, and also any internal and external links that link's website is linking to. Of course, a really important thing to have a look at, just to check that there are actually internal links, or if there's too many internal links, we might want to put in the actionables that we need to reduce the number of links. Another really important one is we want to check if it's blocked by the robots.txt file. So, of course, we want the content to be indexable. If it's really important content, like I was saying before, we still want to really make sure that that is actually still pulling through and actually can be indexed. We can also check, so this is just extra functionality that can actually happen, as well as this could be something that you want to do, and we can externally do this a lot more better. We can check if it's got tracking code on the actual page. Of course, we want to be making sure that if you're reporting to clients or you're reporting to your internal stakeholders, that you actually tracking every page on the website. I've seen websites that, for example, if you go onto Google Tag Manager, for example, you might see an actionable at the top, but it says needs improvement. That can sometimes tell you, oh, that page isn't tagged, so we can audit this and just check if the actual tracking code's on it without having to go into Tag Manager and faff around with everything like that. The number of images, so we can check how many actual images are within the content on the page. Just want to make sure that actually there's not too many images, or if there's no images at all, we might want to put some images just to make the content a bit more readable for users. Image file size, a big one, of course. For page speed, user experience, we want to make sure that the images are not too big in size, so of course we want to try and get them as low as we can. We can also pull through the image format, so we can check if for example, an image is in WebP, JPEG, PNG, AVIF, anything like that. If the image is in JPEG, we can then put an actionable at the end and say, right, I want to convert these to WebP, or of course AVIF, which now Google started supporting. Backlink data, so if we're using platforms like SEMrush, Ahrefs, we can pull through that data straight into the Google Sheet using the API. So of course we want to check if it's a really important content, we want to try and drive links to that. We can check already if it's already got links. Search Console and also Bing Webmaster Tools data. If we want to use the actual APIs that these websites have, we can pull that through. We can tell ChatGPT, I want to pull through this specific data. We can pull through impressions, clicks, anything you really want, any data that comes from Search Console, and you can tell this platform to customize it however you want it. GA4 metrics, so Google Analytics metrics, so we want to pull through all this, for example, to see how many people are actually viewing the page, everything like that. Of course, we can also check through how many conversions are coming through, so maybe this can actually be extended more than a content audit as well. Page speed and core web vitals. I know Google's got now rid of their API for page speed and core web vitals. However, there are other platforms we can still use, like GT metrics, everything like that. I think they still have APIs, so we can pull that data through really easily. Google Business Profile API, we can pull through, for example, if we're auditing the Google Business Profile, I know I'm not talking about that today, however, we can pull through the visibility, how many clicks have been on a phone call, how many clicks have been on let's say the website, anything like that from the Google Business Profile. Other APIs, it's endless. If you've got an API that you use, you can pull through this straight into the Google Sheet without having to copy it from the platform itself. So why not use other similar tools? Of course, there's many tools out there that we can use to do this as well. Problem is, they can be a bit slower than doing it this way. Once you've built it out, it's going to speed it up really quite quickly. So once you've built, for example, if we're using a platform and copying the data through over into the Google Sheet, it's going to be a lot slower than, say, using this platform that I'm telling you about today. It can be more costly. Of course, some platforms have licenses that you've got to pay for. The only platform that I'm saying on here is a paid one. I'm using ChatGPT 4.0. However, you can still use the general ChatGPT, which is free. I've even tried using Google's Gemini AI, so that actually works as well. Any AI should be able to generate, if it can generate code, it can generate the code for this. It's less flexible and more customizable. Of course, when you're copying it from, for example, some other platforms, you've got it in that specific format. And then, of course, if you want to change the format, you've got to actually change that yourself physically. With this, you can tell ChatGPT, for example, I want it in this specific format. And then, of course, it just makes it a lot easier for you and saves you time. So I've talked about this a bit more now. Of course, now let's actually start by actually generating the Google Apps scripts. So firstly, we need to load the Google Sheet up that we're going to actually do the content audit on. So firstly, let's extract the URLs that we're actually going to audit. I'm going to talk about two options. So we can use Screaming Frog, of course, one of my favorite platforms. We can use Screaming Frog to extract the data. We can limit what we want to pull through, really easy. If you haven't got a license to this, you can also use something like an XML sitemap URL extractor. This is just one I found online. So this will enable you to pull through any of the URLs, and then it'll give it in a list, and then you can just paste it straight into Google Sheets. Then we need the actual app scripts platform that we want to use, and ChatGPT. So once you use ChatGPT, we actually want to now give it a prompt to generate the script that we want to use in the Google App Scripts platform. So this is, for example, what I'd say, create a Google formula that extracts, for example, the meta title from a URL that's in a cell in Google Sheets. It should hopefully generate something like this with an actual custom formula. A bit later, I'll show you something that sometimes can happen when you're doing this, so that it does it, but I'll talk about that later. Then, of course, we want to Command-Shift-V or Control-V on a Windows device into the actual Google Sheets platform. And, of course, what I do recommend is actually organising them. So in this, you can create different files. It still works on the Google Sheet that you're using. This then makes it easier. For example, if you have any issues in the later on, you can go through the files and find that script that you're working with. Just makes it, instead of you having to scroll down trying to find the code, it just makes it a lot easier. I just do recommend that. Once you've got all the code generated ChatGPT that you want, you then go to the deploy section and click on new deployment. This just makes sure that you're giving this script access to your Google Sheet that you're using, and also the externally. So for example, of course, you're going to be auditing URLs on this. So we want to give it access so it can actually crawl the web and actually pull this data through. So when we do this, we just have to click on the cog icon on the top up section there and click on web app, because it's a web app, because it's, of course, Google Sheet is a web app. There are other options like add-on library we can use. However, I recommend just use web app. That's how we use it. You can put a description if you want, don't have to. You can then tell it who you want to actually execute it as. So, for example, if you're sharing it in the public domain, you might not want to execute it on your account all the time. So there might be another account that you want to use. And then, of course, who actually has access to this script. So if you're sharing it in the wider SEO community, you can put this to public. And then all you then do is click on deploy. It'll come up with something like this, authorize access. This is just so that you can give access to the app. You might see something like this. Google hasn't verified this app. Don't worry, it's not going to break Google. It's actually just so that you can just give it access to a bit more. So you just have to click on advance and then go to, it'll say untitled project. Sometimes it might tell about the project that the sheet that you actually pull through. And then you just have to go onto this and click allow. So once you've done that, you can then copy the script that you've generated in ChatGPT for each one of them, and put it in the sheet. What I also recommend is once you've pasted all the content in the sheet, you can paste it as plain text. So using Control-Shift-V and Command-Shift-V on a Mac. So this just makes sure that every time you go on the sheet, it doesn't have to run the script again. So unless, of course, you want to make this a real-time thing that's pulling through all the time when you load it, you're getting the latest information, then you would leave the formula in. Once this is done, of course, we want to actually get the actual actionables from it. So what you can do then is, this can take a bit of time, but what you do is you tell it to, I want to summarize the actionables, and then you give it, so for example, if the meta title is, you tell it if this meta title on column A is, say, longer than 50 characters or 60 characters, we can pull it through to rewrite the meta title so it's not truncated in Google search. This can take a bit of time, but of course, once you've done this, it's going to make it so much easier and a lot quicker for you to do. So I thought now I'll cover some issues you may come across when actually using the script. You might get something like this that says create menu. It also might say something like run it. This means it's not doing it as a formula. Instead, it's going to add something like this title. So for example, this one for meta title fetcher, you have to run it. This means that you've got to tell it what the formula is, what cell it's in. It's a bit of a faff. So what I recommend is just going back to ChatGPT and say to it, I don't want to run a script, I want to create a formula. You've got a lot more customizable with the formula using it. This could create any formula that you want. You can name the formula however you want. So for example, for a meta title, you might want to put it as import meta title or something like that, as long as it's not something like already a built-in formula that's in Google. So in Google Sheets, so for example, IMPORTXML, you couldn't use that. And then hopefully it'll generate something and generate you the actual formula. The incorrect format, you've just got to be really clear with Google and with ChatGPT how you want to pull it through. So for example, on here, we've got a list of, it tells us links. So for example, on here, it says 24 and 50 links. It doesn't tell me, are they internal links? Are they external links? What I also always recommend is just to make sure you say to it, I want you to tell me X internal links and X external links. X means the number that how many have actually been counted. Otherwise, you might just want to create a formula that does it separately. So you do the internal links first and then external links correct after. So yeah, chop it into, or you can just tell it to split into two columns for internal and external links. There's loads of different workaways around this. Content not found. This was a vein in my life when I did this, when I got to this. I was like, what's going on? What it is because, of course, every website has different HTML where the content is in, it doesn't know that exactly. So what you've got to do is actually go into, for example, Chrome Inspector tool and find the div class or whatever class it is, if it's a span class, P class, whatever. You need to find this in the thing. So, for example, here on this website, it was article-details CSS-0. You have to tell this to ChatGPT that this is where the content is. So just make sure that it pulls through that content on for you. Also, just one thing to mention is that article details with this, you have to make sure you include the other bit as well. So on this, you'd have to put article details CSS-0. Otherwise, it's just looking for a div class which has div class equals article-details and then closing it. Just make sure that you've got that. And then you've finally got your full content audit done. So just a few key takeaways this platform can help boost your efficiency. It can improve your accuracy and consistency. So of course, if you're auditing multiple websites, you're making sure that you're doing the same amount of auditing, the same level of auditing, and that you're not missing anything out because you're using AI, and that will do it for you. It's more customizable and scalable. There's a lot more things you can do with this script that you can have a go at yourself, have a go at it. It's more customizable because you're not using other platform. You can tell it exactly how you want it to be pulled through into the Google Sheet. And also, you've got more time to focus on other tasks. Because like when we was doing it internally manually, it took us, let's say, a day and a half to do a website that had 2,000 URLs. It can now take us about 3-4 hours, so it's cutting a lot of more time. So you've got more time to actually implement the actionables from the content. It's easy to use once you've actually got it working. And last thing is just have a go yourself and play around with it. Just see what you can adapt with it. You can access my slides on Speaker Deck. I'll be sharing this on Twitter and LinkedIn in a bit. And also I've put on an SOP document just so that gives you a full set of how this actually works. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn, or if you see me around the conference, feel free to just have a chat. Thank you very much.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.